I'm Brad Miller. I'm an academic at the College of Fine Arts in the School of Design Studies. I coordinate the design computing component of the undergraduate degree. I'm at Underbelly, and this is my new work, Data Shadow. It's a development of a piece that I showed originally at ArtSpace in 2009 called Augment Me. It uses, it accesses a large database of images on Flickr, which are all tagged in a kind of a rather inconsistent folksonomy type approach. So it describes who's in the photograph, where it is, colours that are there, whether it's natural light or artificial light. And then I query the database through an intermediate piece of software, develop these kind of large sequences, and then put them together in what we would call it like a composition. And then these compositions are compiled together in larger subsets, and then it runs all day, basically. It uses an interactive camera system to access the content in a kind of performative or participatory kind of way. It doesn't change what the content is. It kind of it feeds back to the user by creating a lens, a magnifying type lens that appears over the pictures and displaces the image, so you can see that you can see basically your body image from above projected into the photographs. At the moment, it's not. Well, Adam's manipulating it as we speak. Adam Hinshaw, who is programming the insides of this piece. The projection is actually one large contiguous image. Each segment is visualized by an individual projector. And these large strips are what we call tiles streams, and they represent the kind of content or accessing the content when doing a particular type of search. And it puts the content, depending on how I configure the search, from left to right. So it puts the most recent images on the right-hand side, and the most past images, images that were taken further into the past, on the left. And so the interaction or the participatory part of it can allow the user to actually access, by moving left and right in the environment, to draw the memories back from the past into the future, so to speak, using a kind of a Western convention, left being a minus number and right being a positive number. In a general sense, it probably is, it's like a visualizer. You know, so you have a database and it visualizes kind of data, and you know, there's all sorts of things that you find in data that you can't see, perhaps because of this, you know, the snow of information. But when you see it perhaps on a wider or a different kind of modality, there's patterns and relationships that appear. In looking back through, you know, as you kind of do, as you kind of reflect on why am I doing this at this particular point in time, I go back to my thesis that I did at COFA with Bill Seaman in 1994, and I did an interactive CD-ROM, literally the first kind of interactive thing I could actually do, that I could afford to do. But you know, it was all about association. It was called a digital rhizome, and it was like exploring Deleuze and Guattari's idea of the rhizome as being this alternative networking idea about power, rather than it being something like a top-down model or a tree of knowledge, which they, particularly Deleuze, absolutely hated, and replacing it with the idea of knowledge as being kind of like a knotty weed, or that it got around like bullgrass or something. It colonized and found relationships, and it got through the walls and got through the cracks, and knowledge was kind of alive. It wasn't, you know, given to the poor people who needed education. You know, that there was different types of knowledge, and it was valuable wherever it kind of worked its way through. So I had been working with associative ideas about association. One of the first people to work on computers and memory and the problem of, and his name was Van der Waal Bush, and he wrote As It May Well Be, or something like that. It was 1947. It was at the end of the war, and he was trying to put out to the American scientific community, there is a problem, and the problem is, how do we deal with huge amounts of information? We've created a monster through the war, and we just can't find anything anymore. And so it becomes the beginning of IT, I guess, right back then in 47, before computers were really even much more than calculating machines. I mean, at one level, the work is really about media arts. It's exploring the mediated moment, whether that is a question about photography and its place in the fine arts tradition, particularly since probably the 1940s, where we are starting to understand art in the age of mechanical reproduction. So we see Benjamin's kind of critical reflection about art making from that time onwards. So there's an element of that happening here. There's also very much the kind of a mediated moment in terms of the fact that these images are actually, they're digitized, they're on the web, they're being pulled up, they're pushed, and they're being interacted with by participants in the moment, in the place. And then there's all my memory elements in it, kind of mediated memories in a way that I kind of tried to explore in a paper called Augment Me, Algorithmic Memory and the Cloud, for IZEA this year in 2011 in Istanbul. And what I'm trying to look at there is just to say perhaps, memory, memory isn't an absolute thing. It doesn't exist either in the photograph or perfectly in the mind either. It's constantly in a state of remembering, in a way. It's an alive circumstance, and this plays with a whole lot of that kind of idea, mediated memory. I see memories now associated with other memories that weren't necessarily there because there are different types of strips of relationships. Memory is about association. I'm not really sure what's really going to be the outcome about that, whether I will have different memories of these moments because they've been manipulated by this machine. Cut.